It's amazing how much human trafficking goes in Denver and around Denver, and how people are trying to battle that. A couple of really brave ladies here who do something amazing. Diana Ames, who you're a nurse. Mm-hmm. Lisa Stransky, do I have that? Also a nurse. Now, let me see if I got this terminology right. Sexual assault nursing examiner. How close was I?
Perfect.
Perfect. What is your job?
We treat victims of violence. So we treat specifically victims of sexual assault, strangulation, and domestic violence. We have some specific training that helps us categorize, document, photograph, and take DNA evidence that will help and aid in the prosecution of these offenders.
Why were you drawn to this? I can't imagine a more difficult job.
I know, it is difficult. I've always been interested in law enforcement. I thought at first I wanted to be a police officer, but then I went to nursing school and I've been a nurse for 20 years, but only in the last about 5 we have been a part of the SANE team at the Medical Center of Aurora. And there's such a need to help these patients in the community that I wanted to become a part of it and learn all about it and help the law enforcement.
Well, then let's dive right into what you two are developing, what you're trying to do on human trafficking. You just told me something that I found wildly interesting. How many women who are trafficked show up in your emergency room?
I don't know the specific numbers for our emergency room, but I know that 88% of victims of human trafficking at some point in their captivity go through an emergency room.
All right, so I never would have thought about this, but where you guys work is the one place outside of where they work that they're going to come at some point, almost certainly are going to come. Right. Can you tell who they are when they come in? I mean, have you developed a sense? How do you know?
Sometimes you don't know, but we have had some education on looking for some clues and trying to identify, these victims that come in and they need help. They're usually never left alone.
Talk to me about the never left alone part. How is that possible? You go see a doctor. Isn't there always time when you are alone with a doctor or nurse?
Right. A lot of times the human trafficker will always have somebody with their victim.
A handler.
A handler. Tell me more about that. What does a handler do?
They keep them quiet. They intimidate them so they don't talk. There's some specific cues that alert nurses that this may be a victim of human trafficking. A lot of them are in with urinary tract infections, pelvic pain, suicide attempts. When we do a history, and we do a history on everybody that comes through the ER, we'll find that they have a history of being treated for multiple sexually transmitted infections, multiple pregnancies or abortions. They'll have bruises or healing scars, lacs, or lacerations. These people like to brand the women and children that go through them. And so there's specific tattoos or brandings that we'll see. Crowns, slave. A real popular one is
slave.
Slave.
The word.
The word slave. They'll have a barcode tattooed on them.
And it's showing ownership and possession of that person who's being sex trafficked.
Incredible. Again, I can't imagine. All right, so you see this and you came up with an idea. Can you describe it for me?
It's a tool we use in the emergency room for when the patient is alone for a test, or we just get them by themselves so that they can ask for help if they need it. And then we are there to get them the resources. If they want us to contact law enforcement, they just know that they're in a safe place and we can help them.
And so what I'm hearing is they are so rarely alone. You've got to find that split second or small time when they're alone, but they might. When is that?
Usually,
if you don't want to tell me, that's okay. But taking some sort of test, it sounds like.
They take a test and then they can mark something.
How do
discreetly.
they know? So they go into a testing room, they go into a bathroom.
We have a sign.
What does a sign say?
If you are being held against your will, forced to have sex for money, want help to get away, please
Please do
yeah,
this.
do this.
And we won't say what this is.
Yeah, and it will alert the nurse, who then calls the SANE department, because we're in-house 24/7. We'll alert the SANE department. We always have police on site, so we'll get Ocean One, or in our case, it's an Aurora.
What is Ocean One?
Ocean One is the police officer that's on site.
Okay.
Most ERs now have a police officer either making rounds or on site. And we separate the patient with an excuse, and we get them to a safe, locked area, and then Ocean One or the police will confront the handler, who 9 times out of 10 will do a dead run right out of the ER.
Really? Mm-hmm. Can you give me a story about this? Is there one that sticks out in your mind, a success?
I haven't personally had one. Did you have one?
We've had a couple. I had a young lady who was pregnant again and did not want this baby killed. She didn't want it beat out of her, and didn't want it just given away. She wanted to keep it, and her handler had kept her addicted to drugs because it makes them dependent. And she had gotten away, run, and was in our ER, and I got called down, and she wanted to be clean and wanted to be allowed to have this baby. And so we work closely with National 1-800 hotline for sex trafficking, who have places all over the United States. And we got her into a rehab and then halfway home. Our goal is to get these victims rescued, rehabilitated, and then reintegrated back into society.
She didn't want the baby beaten out of her.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean by that?
It's cheaper than an abortion. So your handler will beat you in abdominal kicks and punches until the person is forced to miscarry. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, because a pregnancy is not good for their business. Mm-mm. And she wouldn't be able to work as much or as long.
And going in for an abortion is not...
It's money. It's money away from him. Mm-hmm.
And this is happening here in sweet little Denver, Colorado.
It's happening across the United States. Mm-hmm. So it's not just Denver. We happen to be a hub because of the highways. And so specifically what these people do is that they will gather a bunch of women, and then they will rent these houses in nice neighborhoods in these towns, and then they will stay there, and they'll go on the dark web, and they will advertise a sweet young 15, $90 an hour, and then they'll put them in all these rooms, and these men will just come in, have their fun, and then they move on to another city. One of the big cues for us is that these women don't know what city they're in. They don't know what town they're in. We had one that thought she was still in Texas. And she happened to be somebody who was kidnapped in San Francisco, and she was rescued here. Carla had her, and she was rescued here. So
it's still, I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around this.
I know.
There's been failures as well, haven't there? I mean, have you tried to help and you can't?
Mm-hmm. I have been called in to see patients who have either disclosed that maybe they were being forced to do things against their will, and we are called in. I went in and talked to her, and she just was so scared to say anything or admit that she was being held and being forced to have sex with strangers and being trafficked, that she just wouldn't say anything. And so all we could do is just give her some resources, let her know we were there for her.
And you have to watch this girl leave knowing the world she's about ready to go back to.
Yes, it's heartbreaking.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Is language an issue? Are most of these girls speaking English?
Not always, but we have bilingual nurses.
and whatever they see in the testing room where they're finally alone,
We have it in different languages.
different languages, and they see it.
Yes.
Help me, if somebody is listening to this and might be wanting some information where to go and all the rest, but also if somebody is in need of help, it still is hard for me to understand that this person, all they have to do is go talk to a cop, and pretty much any cop in the United States, and their freedom is right there. That all they have to do is in my mind, raise their hand and do it. But I'm completely naive on this. So what's wrong with what I just said?
Right. A lot of them do not trust law enforcement. They see the cops as the bad guys. I think they've been brainwashed. They've maybe had bad experiences in the past where they've encountered police officers and they haven't believed them or treated them, in a negative
They fear
light.
being arrested.
They're afraid of being arrested.
Fear of it. It was so funny. There was
But don't they want to get arrested if they understand our culture enough that
You're
you
just
get
part
arrested?
of the system.
Really?
We had, there's a story of a victim, Erica, in El Paso, Texas, who was 14. And I was reading her story online because we do a lot of education with all of this. And she's 14 and she was put out by a pimp. And not once did anybody ask her if she was being made to do this. She said there were lots of 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds out there, and she'd been arrested multiple times, but not
But
once
no police officer
did they ask,
asked.
were you being forced to do this? And they're targeting young girls, and they use a lot of fear tactics. It's a lot of psychological and physical abuse. They entrap them with promises of love, making their dreams come true, a better life, whatever their vulnerabilities are.
We only got about a half a minute here, so let me wrap this up. It seems to me the first message you want to get out is when you go to an ER, there's a chance there, and
Yes.
there's a way to tell, and it's safe to tell. People want to help. People want to get more information. What do they do?
You can call the SANE department at Aurora Medical Center, and we'd be more than happy to pass along numbers and educate. We have an awesome ER staff there.
And does every ER understand this, or is this still an educational program that needs to happen for people in your business?
It's an ongoing educational process, but more and more people are aware of it.
Incredible. Ladies, thank you for what you do. I can't imagine something so brave. So thank you. Thank you. Listen for me on KHOW Radio. Read me in the Denver Post. Tell a friend. We'll see you next week.